The blizzard came in like a silent monster that night, slow at first, almost gentle, as if the sky were breathing cold air across the Montana plains. But by midnight, it turned violent. The kind of storm that makes even the wolves disappear. The kind that bends trees, swallows roads, and silences entire towns. And somewhere on that white-painted highway, an elderly black woman named Miss Loretta James was driving alone in her rusted maroon Buick. Her hands, covered in thin knitted gloves, gripped the steering wheel as the heater coughed out warm air in tired breaths. The headlights barely pushed through the raging snowfall, but she forced herself to stay calm. She wasn't the kind of woman who panicked easily, not after everything life had already put her through. Loretta had lived long enough to understand storms, the ones in the sky, and the ones inside people. But tonight's storm was different. It felt like the world was trying to erase itself. The wind howled across the empty highway, pushing her car sideways like a toy. Ice crackled under the wheels. Loretta whispered a prayer under her breath. "Lord, not tonight. I can't leave this world on a cold road. Not like this." She tried to keep her mind focused. She had a mission, always did. After her husband died, she dedicated her life to helping anyone who crossed her path. And even now, at 74 years old, she still volunteers at community kitchens, visits lonely elders, and feeds stray dogs behind her house. She was loved, but she was also alone, miles away from home, battling the storm. She didn't know she was driving straight into something that would change her life. A sudden shape flashed in her headlights. Loretta slammed the brakes. The Buick skidded, twisting sideways, sliding across the ice like a helpless sledge, until it stopped inches from a massive black motorcycle lying across the road. Her heart nearly jumped out of her chest. She pushed her face close to the snow-covered windshield. A motorcycle, out here, in this storm. She grabbed her coat, opened the door, and the cold slapped her across the face like a sheet of knives. Her boots sank into the powdery snow as she walked toward the fallen bike. Then she saw him, a man lying face down in the snow, barely moving. Loretta's breath froze in her throat. Lord have mercy. The man was big, broad shoulders, leather jacket, tattoos peeking from his sleeves. He looked like he came from one of those biker clubs the news always warned people about. But she didn't hesitate. Danger had never stopped her from being who she was. She knelt beside him, brushing snow off his face. He was alive, but barely. His lips trembled. He whispered a name she couldn't understand. Then his eyelids fluttered shut. Loretta looked around, panicked. There was no help, no cars, no lights. The storm had swallowed everything. She pulled off her gloves and pressed 2 fingers to his neck. A pulse, weak but there. "Not on my watch," she muttered. She grabbed his arm, tried to lift him, but he was heavy as a fallen tree. She stood up straight, looked at the sky, snow falling like white fire, and she made a decision. Loretta dragged him inch by inch toward her car. Every pull burned her back. Every step felt like a mile. The wind slapped snow against her face until her skin felt raw. But she didn't stop. People had saved her once. Long ago? Now it was her turn. After what felt like an eternity, she heaved his unconscious body into the back seat. His boots hung off the edge until she pushed them in and slammed the door shut. She fell against the car, panting hard. Her legs trembled. Her arms stung. "Jesus, give me strength," she whispered, wiping melting snow from her eyelashes. She hurried back to the motorcycle to look for anything, ID, phone, something. But before she could reach it, headlights emerged from the blizzard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 motorcycles, 9 riders, 9 shadows cutting through the storm. Their engines growled like beasts in the night as they surrounded her car. Black leather, skull patches, metal chains, flames painted on tanks. The kind of men people cross the street to avoid. Loretta gasped as one of them stepped forward, towering over her. His beard was thick, braided with metal beads. His eyes were sharp, icy blue. He studied her with suspicion. "What are you doing with our brother?" he growled. Loretta straightened her coat. She wiped the fear from her eyes, raised her chin, and spoke with a firmness only elders can command. "What any decent person would do," she replied. "I saved him. Now help me keep him alive." The bikers exchanged glances. Their leader stepped forward. "You saved Grizzly." He sounded shocked. Loretta nodded. The men suddenly softened. Their anger melted into urgency. "Ma'am," the leader said, "our brother was dying. You probably saved his life by seconds." She didn't smile, didn't brag, just whispered, "Then stop talking and help me help him." The bikers moved instantly. They lifted the unconscious man with tenderness that didn't match their rough appearance. They wrapped him in jackets, checked his breathing, cleared snow from his beard. Loretta watched quietly. She realized something important. These men loved each other, not with words, but with actions, the only love that matters in storms like this. The leader turned to her again. "You shouldn't be out here alone. This storm's a killer." "I've survived worse," she said. He nodded with respect. "What's your name?" "Ma'am." "Loretta?" "Loretta James?" The bikers repeated her name as if it were sacred. "Miss Loretta." The leader said, "You didn't just save our brother tonight." He lifted his hand and every biker placed their fist over their heart. "You earned the protection of the Iron Reapers." Loretta raised an eyebrow. She'd heard the name before, a biker club, but not the criminal kind. These men were known for helping the forgotten homeless veterans, abused kids, broken families. They were warriors. With a code, the leader pointed at her car. "From this night forward, you are under our wing." She blinked, surprised. "Under your wing? What does that mean?" "It means if you ever need us, if you're ever in danger, if the world ever turns its back on you, call us." He tapped his chest. "And we'll ride." She didn't know what to say, so she said the only thing that felt right. "Thank you, boys." The bikers fixed her engine, placed Grizzly safely across to bikes, escorted her home through the blizzard 9, engines roaring in the night like a wall of thunder guiding a single elderly woman through death itself. When she reached her house, she turned to them. "You all stay warm now. Don't be doing anything stupid." The bikers laughed. Real laughter, not the kind men use to hide pain. The leader removed his gloves and shook her hand. "Miss Loretta, we owe you?" Then, as quickly as they appeared, the 9 bikers vanished into the storm-dark silhouettes swallowed by white chaos. Loretta watched them disappear, unaware of one thing. That act of kindness, that dangerous storm, that one night of mercy, would save her life years later, in a way she could never imagine. Snow swallowed the forest in a thick, suffocating silence as the 9 bikers stood in a loose circle, their breath fogging the icy air. The storm howled like some wounded beast behind them, merciless and blind. But even that monstrous wind felt small, compared to the fear tightening around their hearts, because now, the old woman, the same one who had saved their lives years ago, they were unconscious in their arms. Bear, the biggest of the bikers, lifted her easily, but there was panic trembling subtly in those huge hands. It was the kind of panic men like him weren't used to, the kind they weren't trained to handle. "Her pulse is weak," Hawk muttered, leaning close, his usually sharp voice cracking at the edges. "Damn weak." No one spoke after that, not because they didn't have anything to say, but because every man there knew exactly what that meant. This wasn't just cold. This wasn't just exhaustion. This was something far worse. Rex finally broke the silence, voice rough and thick. "We're not letting her die. Not again, not ever." He didn't mean the words literally. She hadn't died before. But every single biker felt the same deep, irrational fear. The fear of losing someone who had once been nothing to them. And somehow, over the years, it had become everything. Bear looked around, snow gathering in his beard. "There's a ranger outpost half a mile down. I spotted it on the way up." "In this blizzard?" Hawk shot back. Bear nodded. "It's our only shot." Rex tightened his gloves, jaw clenched. "Then we carve our way through." No one argued. No one questioned the danger. 9 men fell into formation, just like they had the night she saved them from freezing to death on that abandoned mountain road all those years ago. Except tonight, it was their turn to save her. Their footsteps crunched through deep drifts, the storm swirling violently around them like a living creature. Snow slapped their faces, claws of wind tearing at their jackets, but they kept moving, huddled close around Bear. who carried the elderly woman pressed protectively against his chest. Every few minutes he checked her pulse. Every few minutes it grew weaker. The quiet ones always worrying the most. And Bear was almost silent now. "Give her my jacket," Hawk said suddenly, voice shaking. Without waiting for a response, he ripped it off and threw it over her frail body. His arms trembled in the cold instantly, but he gritted his teeth and kept walking. One by one, the others peeled off their outer layers too. Leather vests, scarves, heated pads, wrapping them around her until she looked less like one woman, and more like a bundle of every scrap of warmth 9 grown men could offer. The blizzard thickened. Visibility dropped to almost nothing, but they pressed forward. Because sometimes loyalty isn't loud. Sometimes gratitude isn't spoken. Sometimes love doesn't look like roses or words or promises. Sometimes it looks like 9 bikers walking into a deadly storm, with an old woman in their arms, risking everything without hesitation. And then, finally, a faint light appeared through the wall of snow. The ranger outpost, a single window glowing with warm yellow light. Barely visible through the white chaos. Rex pointed. "Move." The group pushed harder, boots sinking into snow up to their knees. They could see the outline of the wooden cabin, now small, crooked, almost swallowed by the storm, but hope flared in their chests anyway. They reached the door. Bear kicked it once, nothing. He kicked again harder. The door burst open. Warmth washed over them instantly. Inside, a lone ranger, mid-50s. Flannel shirt, gray beard. Froze with his mug halfway to his lips. "What the?" "No time," Rex barked. "She is dying." The ranger dropped the mug so fast that it shattered across the floor. He cleared the table with one swipe and gestured urgently. "Lay her here." Bear gently lowered her onto the wooden surface. The ranger pressed fingers to her neck, then to her wrist. His eyes flicked up. "She has minutes. Maybe." Silence slammed through the room. A cold sharper than any winter wind crushed every man's chest. "Do something," Hawk begged, voice raw. The ranger didn't waste another second. He opened a medical box, an old metal kit with peeling paint, and sorted through it at lightning speed. He pulled out heated gel packs, a thermal blanket, electrolyte injectors, and an oxygen cannula. One of the bikers muttered, "Please, God." They watched as the ranger wrapped her in thermal insulation, placing heat packs around her heart, under her arms, behind her neck. Her breathing was shallow, barely visible, and her eyelids trembled, like she was fighting the dark pulling her under. The bikers stood helplessly, watching her chest rise and fall like a dying fire. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time didn't feel real anymore. Finally, her fingers twitched. Bear leaned in so fast he almost knocked Rex over. Her eyes fluttered open, not fully, just enough, barely a sliver, but enough for them to see the recognition in them. Enough to hear her whisper, fragile but alive, "Y'all came for me?" Bear didn't even try to stop the tears that hit the floor. Rex took her hand gently. "Always." She smiled faintly, weak but warm. "Still saving each other, huh?" she whispered. Then her eyes drifted closed. But this time not from danger. This time from exhaustion and safety. The ranger exhaled loudly, rubbing his forehead. "She live," he said. "You got her here just in time." The relief that flooded the room was overwhelming. Some laughed. Some cried. Some just stood frozen, letting the tension drain out of them all at once. But the storm outside didn't care about any of that. The wind growled, the cabin shook, and the snow piled higher against the windows. And in that moment, as the bikers looked out at the raging night, something dawned on them. The blizzard wasn't just weather. It wasn't just nature. It felt like a warning, a reminder, because fate had brought them here again, to the same kind of storm, to the same fight against death, to the same woman who had once risked herself to save 9 strangers. But now, fate whispered something else, something darker, heavier, more urgent. This storm wasn't an accident. Something was coming, something bigger, something that would test the promise these men had made years ago, a promise forged in snow and frostbite and survival. "We owe her everything," Rex murmured. Bear nodded, eyes locked on the sleeping woman. "And now, we protect her with everything we've got." Outside, thunder cracked in the sky. A sound as sharp, too unnatural to be thunder. Hawk stiffened. That wasn't the weather. Rex stepped toward the window. In the distance, through the chaos of wind and snow, a pair of headlights flickered. Slow, deliberate, approaching. The bikers exchanged glances. Their gratitude turned to fear. Their fear turned to suspicion. Their suspicion turned to resolve. Someone was coming for her. And after this night, the 9 bikers would discover that the storm they had fought so hard to survive, it was nothing compared to the darkness that wanted her dead. The cabin lights flickered as the storm slammed against the wooden walls, rattling the windows like skeletal fingers desperate to get inside. The 9 bikers stood completely still, the tension around them thick enough to choke on. Rex didn't breathe. Hawk didn't blink. Bear didn't move a muscle, because outside, those headlights were still coming. Slow, deliberate, cutting through the white storm like the eyes of something hunting, something searching. The ranger stepped forward with a frown. "You expecting someone?" No one answered. Every biker shared the same thought. No one should be out here in this weather, not unless they're desperate or dangerous. The headlights stopped about 50 yards from the cabin. The engine idled, a low growl swallowed slightly by the wind. Rex stepped closer to the window, wiping away condensation with his sleeve. He squinted through the swirling snow. "Can't see the plates," he muttered. Hawk leaned close. "Too much ice. Too much glare." Bear's voice was quiet but heavy. "Whoever they are, they found us." The ranger grabbed his shotgun from behind the door, loading shells with practiced speed. "You boys want to tell me what kind of trouble just followed you up here?" Rex didn't look away from the window. "We don't know," he said, "but it started the moment she collapsed." Every biker turned their eyes to the woman sleeping on the table, her breathing faint but steady beneath the thermal blankets. She looked fragile for a world this cold, this cruel, this unforgiving. But it wasn't fragility they feared. It was the possibility that someone wanted her gone. A faint thud echoed outside, then another. Footsteps. Heavy ones? Slow ones? The kind that didn't belong to someone lost, but someone approaching with purpose. The kind that made the hair on the back of Hawk's neck stand straight up. Bear growled under his breath. "They're coming to the door." Rex motioned. "Positions?" The bikers fanned out instinctively. 2 behind the door, 2 flanking the windows. To by the woman. 3 more spread around the room like silent guard dogs. Every man's pulse sensed to the same beat. Protect her, no matter what. The footsteps stopped just outside. Silence. Then, a slow, deliberate knock. Not frantic, not polite, intentional. 3 strikes. Boom, boom, boom. The ranger's grip tightened on his shotgun. "You boys want me to handle this?" Rex shook his head once. "No, we will." He nodded to Hawk, who slowly unlatched the door, but didn't open it. "Who's there?" Rex called out. The voice that answered was muffled by the storm but disturbingly calm. "Open the door." Hawk raised an eyebrow at Rex. Rex shouted again. "State your name first." Another thud hit the door. Not a knock this time, but a fist. Hard, threatening. "I'm not here to chat," the voice said. "Open the door." The bikers exchanged glances. Bear whispered, "This ain't no lost traveler." "Damn right," Rex muttered. But before they could answer, the woman stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but alert. She turned her head slightly, confused by the tension in the room. The weapons drawn, the storm roaring outside. What's happening?" she whispered. Rex knelt beside her. "Take it easy, ma'am. You're safe." But she didn't look calm. Her eyes old, wise, and deeply afraid fixed on the door. And then she whispered something that made every man in that cabin freeze. "They found me." The words were soft, barely a breath, but the weight behind them felt like the crack of thunder. Bear leaned closer. "Who found you?" She shook her head weakly. "No time. You need to leave. Now. All of you." Hawk frowned. "Not without you?" She grabbed Rex's sleeve with trembling fingers. "You don't understand. They don't stop. They don't forgive. And they don't leave survivors." The knock came again, harder. Boom, boom, boom. The ranger whispered, "What the hell did you get yourselves into?" Rex stood slowly, his face set with grim determination. "Ma'am, whoever is out there, we're not letting them touch you." Her eyes softened painfully. "You boys shouldn't risk your lives for me." But Bear shook his head. "You risked yours for ours." The old woman's eyes filled with emotion, fear, gratitude, regret, something heavier. Before she could speak, the voice outside called out again. "You've got 10 seconds to open this door." The bikers stiffened. Hawk whispered, "What do we do?" Rex exhaled slowly. "We don't open it." The footsteps began to circle the cabin, slow crunches in the snow, moving like a predator measuring its prey. The ranger stepped to the back window. "There's another one out there." Hawk checked the side window. "And another." Bear cursed under his breath. "We're surrounded." Rex felt the cabin shrink around them. The warm glow of the lights suddenly seemed too small against the cold threat outside. Then, a shadow passed the front window. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing what looked like a long coat flapping in the wind. Rex's instincts screamed. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was targeted. The woman's voice trembled. "They work for a man named Gideon Frost." The name sent a chill down the room, even colder than the blizzard. Bear frowned. "Who the hell is that?" She swallowed hard. "A man who doesn't forgive debts or disobedience." Silence. The bikers understood instantly. She had crossed someone powerful, and now they were all in the crosshairs. Another bang hit the door loud enough to shake the hinges. Then another. Rex nodded to Hawk. "Barricade it." Hawk and 2 others shoved the heavy table in front of the door, forcing it against the frame. The woman struggled to sit up, gasping. "You boys need to go out the back. Take the snowmobile." "Leave me?" "No." Rex's voice was final. "You saved 9 lives. Now we save yours." Outside, something metallic dragged across the wall. A tool, a weapon, something meant for breaking in. The ranger stepped close to the bikers, shotgun raised. "Whatever's coming, we face it together." The storm outside screamed louder, like nature itself was warning them. The woman looked from man to man, tears gathering in her eyes. "You don't know what these people are capable of," she whispered. Bear adjusted his gloves, cracked his knuckles, and stepped forward. "Lady." "Neither do they." The wall shook. Snow dust fell from the ceiling. The entire cabin trembled under the force of something ramming the side. Hawk hissed, "They're testing the structure." Rex muttered, "They're looking for a weak spot." The woman whispered the truth no one else wanted to say. "They're not going to leave until I'm dead." Rex stepped in front of her protectively. "Then they're leaving disappointed." The growl of the engine outside suddenly revved louder, followed by 2 more engines joining it from the darkness. Bear's eyes widened. "Oh hell, they brought reinforcements." Rex raised his chin slowly. "Good," because deep inside him a fire sparked. The same fire that burned in his brothers. The same fire forged years ago in a snowstorm just like this one. A promise wasn't something you spoke. A promise was something you bled for. And tonight, they were ready to bleed. The cabin shuddered again as something slammed into the back wall, harder this time, strong enough to rattle the glass panes until they buzzed like bees trapped in a jar. Snow fell from the ceiling in a thin cascade. The lights flickered, dimming for half a second before humming back to life. Rex didn't move. His eyes were locked on the door. Hawk's fingers tightened around the crowbar in his hands. Bear's massive shoulders rose and fell with slow, controlled breaths. Gideon Frost's men were not testing anymore. They were preparing to break in. Outside, engines roared in the storm. 3 of them, now maybe 4, circling. The cabin like wolves scenting a wounded animal inside. Their lights cut through the swirling snow in sharp, ghost-like streaks. The old woman Evelyn watched the chaos unfold, fear trembling across her worn features. "They'll kill you," she whispered hoarsely. "You boys don't understand who you're up against." Bear wiped snow from his beard with the back of his hand. "We've been up against worse." She shook her head. "Not like this. Gideon Frost. He doesn't just punish. He erases." A dark crash punctuated her sentence as something smashed against the side window. Crack lines splintered across the glass like lightning, frozen in place. The ranger flinched. "Damn it, they're trying every entrance." Rex scanned the room. Front door, back door, 2 side windows, roof hatch. "Block the windows," he ordered. Hawk and Zeke grabbed heavy furniture, chairs, crates, pieces of wooden shelving, and wedged them against the cracked pane. The wind outside howled louder, pressing against the cabin as if nature itself were siding with the attackers. Rex lowered his voice. We need to know who's out there, what they want, and how many we're fighting. Evelyn closed her eyes for a second, gathering the strength she barely had. It started 20 years ago, she whispered. I worked the books for Gideon back then. Legit businesses on the surface. Filth underneath. Bear frowned. Drugs. No. She shook her head weakly. Worse. People. Debt. Extortion. Things you can't imagine. A heavy silence swallowed the room. Hawk's jaw tightened. So, why is he after you now? After all these years? Evelyn swallowed hard. Because I left. I walked away. And I took something with me. Rex leaned forward. What did you take? Evidence? She breathed. Documents, names, proof of every crime he built his empire on. Even the storm seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Zeke muttered. Lady, that's a death wish. Evelyn nodded slowly. I know. That's why I ran. The room shook again, this time with a metallic scrape, like a giant blade dragging along the exterior. The ranger looked at Rex urgently. They're circling for a breach point. Evelyn tried to sit up, gripping the blanket around her shoulders. I'm sorry I dragged you boys into this. Bear crouched beside her. You didn't drag us anywhere. Rex added, you saved our lives once. Fate sent us here tonight to return the favor. Evelyn stared at them, breath trembling. You don't know me anything. Rex pointed to the window where shadows moved behind the frosted glass. They're after you. That means they're after us. And you don't face wolves alone. She opened her mouth, but before she could respond, a loud metal clank rang out on the roof. Every biker froze. What the hell was that? Hawk whispered. The ranger lifted his shotgun. They're trying to come through the hatch. Bear growled. Not on my watch. He moved toward the ladder leading to the roof hatch, but Rex grabbed his arm. No. They want you to split up. They want chaos. Stay together. Another impact hammered the roof, dust falling from the beams. Evelyn's breathing grew shaky. If they get inside, none of us survive. Rex turned to the bikers. Listen up. We hold the perimeter. We protect Evelyn. We buy time until the storm lets up, then we move. Hawk nodded. Move where? Rex didn't blink. To end this, before they could discuss it further, a deep engine rumble cut through the storm. Louder, heavier, close. The ranger's eyes widened. That's a plow truck. Hawk cursed. They're using it as a battering ram. The rumble grew stronger until the floor vibrated beneath their boots. Snow trembled off the window frames. Bear braced himself. They're gonna hit the front wall. Rex shouted, positions. Every biker took defensive stances. Bear and Rex are nearest the door. Hawk and Zeke at the windows. The ranger covering the back with his shotgun. 3 others forming a protective shield around Evelyn. The old woman pulled the blankets tight, fear quaking in her frail hands. The truck engine revved, and then, slam, the entire cabin jolted violently, throwing everyone off balance. Dust exploded from the rafters, falling like sand. The front wall buckled inward, wooden beams cracking under the pressure. The second slam came before anyone could stand properly. The table barricading the door shifted inches. Evelyn gasped. They're breaking through. Rex roared. Hold that damn door. Bear and Zeke leaned their entire weight into the barricade. The wall groaned, cracking like bones. Outside, men shouted orders. Another hit. Another shudder. The wood splintered. The door hinges snapped, bending inward. Then, silence. No truck. No engines. No footsteps. Just the wind screaming across the roof. Hawk whispered, why'd they stop? A soft sound answered him. Footsteps. Slow, crunching through snow. Coming toward the door again, but this time, more than one set. 5, 6. Rex exchanged a glance with Bear. This wasn't an ambush. This was a breach team. The footsteps stopped right outside the broken frame. A shadow loomed through the cracks. Then, a calm, cold voice spoke from the other side. Evelyn, you're making this difficult. Her face drained of color. Rex called out, who are you? The voice responded with quiet authority. A messenger. The bikers looked at each other. Messenger. From who? He answered their unspoken question. Gideon Frost sends his regards. Bear snarled. Tell Frost he can go to hell. The man chuckled lightly. So predictable. Then the atmosphere changed. Gone was the pretense. Gone was the polite knock. Gone was the illusion of patience. The voice dropped into a cold, lifeless whisper. Open the door, or we tear this cabin apart with you in it. Evelyn gripped Rex's sleeve. Don't engage. Not with him. Not with Kane. Rex frowned. Kane. Her voice trembled. Gideon's right hand. The executioner. If he's here, this isn't about scaring me. It's about finishing me. The wind slammed the side of the cabin again, but the noise outside felt closer, more enemies joining by the minute. Then Kane spoke again. You have 1 minute, Evelyn. Rex leaned in close. How does he even know your name? Evelyn closed her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. Because I used to be his accountant. The silence that followed was suffocating. The ranger cocked his shotgun. 40 seconds? Rex looked around the room. 9 bikers. 1 terrified ranger. 1 dying woman. A cabin moments away from collapse. And outside, a fully armed kill squad trained by a man who never failed. Rex exhaled deeply. All right, he said softly. We fight. Evelyn's eyes widened with fear. No. Please. He'll kill you all. Bear squeezed her hand gently. Ma'am, some people are worth dying for. The footsteps outside rearranged. Weapons clicked. Someone whispered, ready breach. Rex tapped Bear's arm. When the door blows open, don't fall back. Hawk nodded. Make him work for every inch. The ranger whispered a prayer under his breath. Outside, the world held its breath. Inside, 9 men stood like a wall of iron. Kane's voice cut through the storm one last time. Time's up. The room stayed frozen for a long, breathless moment. The monitors beeped softly behind Mama Louise. But nobody moved, not a single biker, not a single doctor. It was as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Axel stepped closer, his voice trembling in a way none of them had ever heard. Mama Louise, you knew all these years. You knew you saved the man who killed your son. Her eyes glistened, tired, ancient, but steady. Baby, I didn't know. I just knew you were cold. You were hurt, and you were children. That single word, children, cuts deeper than any blade. Because no matter how rough, how tattooed, how leather-clad they had become, she was right. They were just lost sons, looking for a place to belong. Doc swallowed hard. His voice cracked. Then why help us? Why not let us freeze? Why not hate us? Mama Louise's lips trembled, but she smiled anyway. A soft, aching smile. 'Cause hate is heavy, baby, and I was tired of carrying it. The bikers lowered their heads, guilt folding their bodies inward. You could almost feel the weight, the shame, the confusion, the heartbreak pouring out of them like smoke. The storm outside continued to roar, beating against the hospital windows like ghosts demanding entry. The lights flickered, but inside that room, a different storm was happening. Saint stepped forward, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Mama, we didn't come here for forgiveness. We don't deserve it. She coughed, but her voice didn't waver. I know what you boys came for. You came 'cause you're my family. Those words, my family, they hit harder than any truth they'd faced tonight. Axel shook his head, broken. We took your real family from you. Mama Louise lifted her trembling hand. He rushed to take it. Her palm was cool, fragile, yet it felt like touching a whole lifetime of love. And then God gave me 9 more. Saint couldn't hold back anymore. He pressed his forehead to the foot of her bed, shoulders shaking. Roddy put a hand on his back, then Hawk, then the others. A circle just like the blizzard night, just like the moment they became hers. Doc stepped up, voice raw. Mama, we're here now. For whatever you need, for however long you have left. You're not dying alone. Mama Louise chuckled weakly. I ain't dying tonight, baby. I'm too stubborn for that. The room exhaled a breath of relief and heartbreak mixed together. But then, a nurse rushed in. Her face was pale, eyes wide. We need some space. Her blood pressure just dropped sharply. The bikers froze. Mama Louise's smile faded. The monitors began to beep faster. Faster? Faster? Then irregular. Axel looked at the nurse. What's happening? She didn't answer. She was too busy. Doctors rushed in. Machines buzzed. The storm outside howled louder, almost furious. Mama Louise's fingers tightened around Axel's hand. Her voice, barely a whisper now. Don't let go. baby. Don't let go." Axel leaned in, tears streaming down. "I'm right here. Mama, I'm right here." The monitor spiked, then dipped again. A doctor shouted, "We're losing her." And the bikers, 9 hardened men who had survived bar fights, gunshots, prison cells, and winters that could kill a man in minutes, felt a fear they'd never felt in their entire lives. The fear of losing the only angel who ever saw light in them when the whole world saw monsters. The monitor beeped erratically. Mama Louise's grip weakened. Her eyes fluttered. The doctor yelled again, "Code blue now." And as the bikers stood there, helpless, their world began to collapse. The room exploded into motion. Doctors shoved a crash cart against the bed. Nurses pulled wires, lifted paddles, shouted numbers. But the bikers heard none of it. All they heard was the flat line. That hadn't come yet, but felt terrifyingly close. Axel refused to step back when the nurse tried to move him. "I'm not leaving her." His voice cracked, but his stance didn't. The doctor barked, "Sir, if you don't move, she will die." Doc grabbed Axel's shoulders, pulling him backward even as Axel fought him like a wounded animal. Axbro let them work. Axel's body sagged, but his eyes never left Mama Louise. Her chest rose barely, shallow, weak. Her eyelids fluttered like they were too heavy to hold open. The storm outside slammed against the windows. Thunder rolled over the hospital like a warning. Then, charging 200, the defibrillator whined. Axel flinched as the paddles pressed against Mama Louise's chest. Clear. Her body jerked violently. The monitor spiked, then dipped again. The doctor leaned over Mama Louise, pressing 2 fingers into her neck. His face changed. The bikers saw it instantly, and it crushed them. Axel stumbled forward. No. No, check again. Check again? The doctor didn't move. His eyes softened, painfully gentle. I'm sorry. She's gone." The words hung there like smoke. Unreal, unwanted, unbearable. Axel's roar shattered the room. A sound too deep to be human, too broken to be anything but the scream of a son losing his mother. He collapsed at her bedside, his forehead pressed against her still hand, her skin already cooling. Saint dropped to his knees beside him, then Doc, then Hawk. One by one, the 9 men who once feared nothing in this world wept. Not quietly, not politely. They cried like children, like orphans, like soldiers who lost the only home they ever knew. The storm outside raged harder, slamming rain into the windows like fists. Lightning flashed across the room, illuminating their grief in violent white bursts. For a long time, no one spoke. Then, soft, trembling, Axel whispered, "She forgave us. She forgave us before we even deserved it." Saint's voice cracked, "And we couldn't save her." Roddy shook his head. "No, she saved us. Even now. She died knowing she didn't hate us." Axel lifted Mama Louise's hand, kissing it with shaking lips. "We owe her everything." Doc wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his jacket. "Then we honor her. Every damn day." Hawk's voice was almost a growl. "She's gone, but her story ain't over. We finish what she started." Axel looked up, eyes red, face streaked with tears. But something fierce, something alive burned behind them. "We protect whoever she protected. We love whoever she loved. And we live clean. For her." The others nodded, one by one. A vow, a pledge, a promise carved into their bones. But before anyone could speak again, a doctor rushed back into the room. "Wait, everyone, stop. We're getting a pulse." Axel's breath caught. Saint grabbed the bed rail. Doc blinked like he didn't believe it. The monitor beeped. Soft, weak, but real. Mama Louise's finger twitched. The doctor shouted, "We need the room now, she's not gone yet." Axel stumbled back, stunned. A single, trembling whisper left his lips. "Mama?" Her chest rose shallow but rising. The doctor yelled, "Move, we're bringing her back." And just like that, hope surged like lightning through all 9 men. The monitor beeped again, then again, soft, slow, fragile, but alive. The doctor barked orders, his voice shaking with disbelief. "She's stabilizing, keep the line open. Get respiratory back in here." The lights above flickered as the storm hammered the hospital, but nothing could dim the shock spreading across the faces of 9 men who had built their lives on violence, brotherhood, and roads soaked in danger. Axel pressed a shaking hand to the glass window separating them from the doctors. His breath fogged the glass. His voice came out cracked. "She's fighting. She's actually fighting." Saint swallowed hard, wiping his face. "She always did. Toughest woman I ever met." Doc chuckled through tears. "She survived a blizzard just to yell at us like a mom. You think she's dying today?" "No, not Mama Louise." Hawk crossed his arms, but his voice trembled. "Storm's outside, but she's the light." The men waited in the hallway silent but hopeful as the doctors worked. Minutes felt like hours. Every beep on the monitor felt like a blessing. Then, the door opened. The doctor removed his mask, shoulders relaxing. "She's stable. For now." She made it through. Axel staggered forward. "Can we see her?" The doctor nodded. "One at a time, but be gentle. She's weak." Axel entered first. The others watched him walk into the dim hospital room, his shadow stretching long behind him. Inside, Mama Louise lay still, oxygen tube gently rising with her breaths. Her eyes, heavy and tired, slowly opened. Axel froze. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "You boys fuss too much." Axel covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. Then he took her hand and kissed it. "Mama, you scared the hell out of us." She smiled weakly. "You scared me first, showing up at my house looking like the end of the world." Axel laughed through his tears. "We shouldn't have left you alone all these years. We're here now, all of us, and we're not going anywhere." Mama Louise blinked slowly, studying him with motherly softness. "You're my boys. Always were." One by one, each biker entered. Saint knelt and kissed her forehead. Doc adjusted her blanket as if she were precious china. Huck awkwardly held her hand with both of his, staring at the floor like a giant who didn't trust his strength. She whispered kindness to all of them. Forgiveness, love, warmth. The kind of warmth they had never known growing up. The kind they had been starved for. The kind that makes men change. Hours passed. The storm calmed. The night softened into a quiet dawn. Mama Louise's breathing grew steadier. Her voice regained a bit of its playful spark. "Now, which one of you knuckleheads is bringing me pancakes?" Doc chuckled. "You almost died, and you want pancakes." She shrugged. "A lady's gotta eat." The men laughed, real laughter-free, and burdened. For the first time in a long time, they weren't criminals, fighters, or outcasts, just family. 1 week later, Mama Louise was discharged from the hospital. 9 motorcycles rolled up to her house, but slowly, gently, respectfully. Neighbors peeked out from windows as 9 leather-clad giants unloaded groceries. Blankets, heaters, and old-fashioned country pies. Mama Louise stepped out of the car, leaning on Axel's arm. "Lord have mercy. All this for me." Axel smiled. "This is nothing. You should see the rest." Huck opened the door to her cabin. New roof, fixed windows, stocked pantry, reinforced walls. The warmth returned to her home, the same warmth she had given them the night she saved them in the blizzard. As she walked inside, Axel whispered to the others, "We ain't done." Saint nodded. "Never will be." Doc added quietly, "She gave us a reason to be better men." Huck's voice rumbled, "And we're gonna protect that reason forever." When Mama Louise turned back to them with tears in her eyes, they all knew. This wasn't charity. This wasn't pity. This wasn't a debt. This was love and family. The family they never had. The family she never stopped giving to. Later, as they sat together, she looked straight ahead like speaking to the world itself. Her voice was frail, but wise. "Storms don't come to destroy you. They come to show you who stands beside you." She held Axel's hand and continued, "Be kind, even when the world ain't kind to you. You never know which small act of love will come back to save your life one day." The bikers bowed their heads, not in fear, not in shame, but in respect. Deep, true, life-changing respect. If Mama Louise's story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Share this story with someone who needs hope, someone who feels alone, someone who forgot that kindness still exists. And remember, real strength isn't how hard you fight, it's how deeply you love. If you want more powerful real-life stories like this, stories of redemption, loyalty, and unexpected heroes, subscribe, share, and never forget the good you do always finds its way back.